Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Philippine Safe Abortion Advocacy Network. I'm Red, and today is a special day. We are talking to one of my idols in the feminist and women's rights movement. She's one of the pillars. She's been here even before I was born, long before that. I'm talking to Anna Princess Nemenzo. Welcome, Princess, to our podcast.
Hello, hi.
Yes, and recently you just got back. You came from Geneva.
Yeah, I attended the 36th session of the UN Human Rights Council, and I represented actually the Center for Reproductive Rights, New York-based agency, but also together with the Women's Global Network for Reproductive Rights and the Philippine Safe Advocacy
Safe Abortion Advocacy Network.
Safe Abortion Advocacy Network.
Yes. So we had the delegation there. Like, people are talking about it on the news. Of course, Cayetano was defending the human rights record of the Philippines, but you were also there and you were bringing up a different issue. So we actually have a video of it. You can look at it at the links on the description. But tell us about what you asked for. What you asked the UN?
Actually, I was the second reporter, in a sense, no, from the civil society organizations. And I focus on sexual and reproductive health and rights. Specifically, I pointed out, this is our collective position of the groups I mentioned, and I pointed out that even under limited circumstances, the restriction against abortion has been absolute, no? And yet there have been initiatives that were started to try and establish certain grounds, for allowing access to safe abortion services. No? And this is something that we would like to see legislated. There was an attempt to introduce it in a legislative agenda, but it was retrieved, recalled, and now we would like to see this put forward once again.
Yes, because the Philippines is, a signatory to treaties, which means that we actually should have a law that allows like abortion in limited cases, and certainly the decriminalization of abortion should be a reality, and that's what you asked for.
Actually, there are certain grounds already accepted even in other countries, and in fact, this was part, that proposal to decriminalize abortion and to have to provide safe access to abortion services. Was already contained in an advisory opinion coming from the CEDAW committee, and that was based on an inquiry, that was conducted here. So, but the Philippine government so far has not responded positively, to that proposal.
Yes.
So, in a sense, we were asking, some accountability, and some action and some response, from the government on that recommendation of the CEDAW committee.
Several governments actually mentioned this as well, that we should, they commended us for the passage of the RH law, but one in particular, the Netherlands, they asked us to in line with your call, to allow abortion in certain circumstances, right? And it's very timely too, because on September 28th, globally we're celebrating the International Day of Action for access to safe and legal abortion.
True.
So we have some activities. We'll talk more about that. But abortion, really, this is at the forefront of the women's rights movement. It's the most progressive thing that you can ask for today.
It's really sad, because this is a topic that has been shunned, that has been avoided, that has been shrouded in secrecy and in silence, and I think it's time that we really bring this out, in the open, because this is, a terrible, a sad reality of women's lives, and yet we just allow women dying without any support at all.
Yeah.
And this is something that I think women have got to speak out more, and government should respond, because we cannot tolerate or accept women dying, because of there is no access to safe services.
And 3, I think the number is 3 right now. Around 3 women every day die because of lack to safe and legal abortion access, right? They induce it on themselves, and it's always unsafe when you do it outside of those safer settings. But before we can really talk about abortion and move forward on this issue, I think it would help to have some clarity on how we got here. And I think that's something that you especially can enlighten us on. So, that journey from several decades ago that you started in this women's rights movement, asking for safe, sexual and reproductive health and rights. Can you tell us a bit about how it all started?
Well, actually, this was during the time of the drafting of the 1987 Constitution. And we had just kicked out, in a sense, the dictator Marcos in 1986, and Cory Aquino assumed power, and so she appointed a constitutional commission to draft a new constitution. And it was at that time that the women's groups got together to come up with a set of women's rights provisions that we wanted to see included in the Constitution. And but unknowingly, the organizations, as well as the hierarchy, Catholic hierarchy, already were working very, very aggressively to put forward certain proposals in the Constitution that were really based more from their so-called moral teachings. And one was to include a so-called right to life of the fetus, right to life of the fertilized ovum. It was as crude as that in the beginning, or right to life of the unborn in the Constitution. So we lobbied against that. We could not even talk about abortion at that time, so we came out with a petition to exclude that right to life of the unborn, because we said this is something that should merit and deserve widespread nationwide discussion, especially on a topic that affected women. But the church just wanted to, insert it in the Constitution. So anyway, we tried to resist this, and what came out, because at that time awareness and understanding of the issue was so low, even among the women's groups. This was something that had never been discussed, and that was precisely why we said there should be, more consultations. But anyway, they ran it down, but we were able to get some compromise provision, but it's still tilted in favor of the right to life of the unborn. And this final provision in the Constitution states the state shall provide equal protection to mother and the unborn from conception. So that's how it's stated. But now it's always interpreted to be against abortion.
So just some added context on that, like just before those times, Roe v. Wade happened in the US, and it started this plan of the United States Bishops' Conference to insert these constitutional provisions in different countries where they had influence. And one of those countries was the Philippines. And like you said, the Catholic Church here, they played a significant role in the ousting of Marcos. And there was that quid pro quo, And actually, if groups like yours weren't there could have been provisions in the Constitution that even banned artificial contraception, because there was a draft EO that would only allow natural family planning methods.
But that came afterwards.
That came afterwards.
Yeah, because actually this was quite a comprehensive strategy adopted by the church. So they not only inserted that right to life provision, but they also inserted a whole section on the unity of the family. We have nothing against the family, but we felt that at the bottom of that, was this interest to to prevent divorce, So to say that the family, is the basic unit of society, and to protect it and all that. So it, for the women's movement, we just felt that they were going to just allow, women to be within families without even looking at the situation of women, and specifically at the violence that happens, that occurs within the family.
Yeah.
So, yes and no. We support the family, of course, but they should look, at all the members of the family, as elements, as units, as autonomous units whose rights should be respected. But anyway, so it's not only that, the unit of the family against divorce, and the third item that they really made sure was out of the Constitution was any mention of population policy. So we saw this, as a comprehensive strategy adopted by the church.
Yeah.
Now you were talking of the executive order that came later, because soon after the ratification of the Constitution, President Cory was very close to Cardinal Sin. He was her spiritual advisor. So Cardinal Sin, together with Cardinal Vidal, they were pressuring Cory to approve a draft executive order that you mentioned, which would prohibit the use of government funds or resources for any other method except natural family planning. And when we found that out, the women's groups came out against it. We organized against it. But at that time, the family planning groups were silent, because the family planning groups did not know where they were coming or going. The situation of family planning was very ambiguous, and they did not know where they would be placed. So they, in a sense, they did not support us there. But we came out against what we said was the sneaky, maneuver of the church to do this behind our backs, because without any benefit of consultation with the women, they just wanted Cory, because of their political influence over Cory, they just wanted her to approve the EO. But fortunately, that did not happen. But that is due to many factors, among which I would like to say was the resistance and the protest of the women's group.
Yeah, thank you so much. Like, if it weren't for you back then, maybe we wouldn't have an RH law today. And this comes like 20 years after, 1987, 30 years even, right? Yeah, so
that long time coming.
That like you've been fighting for, that RH struggle for 30 years now.
Well,
and
you were
it's not over. Yeah.
You were part of this struggle.
I came
just
late.
to ensure family planning would be made available to the women. Well, you were part of that, and you can see how hard it was.
It was super hard. I mean, those few years that we were part of the struggle, like we saw how hard it was, and it's not yet over. Right? Today, maybe the Supreme Court and the FDA and the DOH, they're working on lifting the TRO on two particular implant brands, Implanon and Implanon NXT. And we might have a decision on that soon.
I hope so.
And the complaint was that they didn't hear like these anti-choice groups when they were deciding on the abortifacient nature of these implants. And you're telling me that at the start, they kind of did something similar very sneakily, getting those provisions in there without national consultation. So it's just interesting to me.
They did not stop there. There have been really bills proposed, to limit family planning to natural methods.
Yeah.
It's
a very long story, right?
I'm
aware that something happened during Gloria's time when only natural family planning methods was purchased by the government or something like that. And it's not yet over. So, moving forward, like, can you tell us?
But it's rather sad.
Yeah.
That the two women presidents that we've had, did not even support, women's right to
You're
health,
right.
to reproductive
Yeah,
health.
that's a very interesting point.
Cory Aquino
Yeah.
and Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, they just promoted natural family planning.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it took a long time, for the family planning program under the, Department of Health and the Commission on Population to move forward.
Yeah.
3 years after Cory Aquino, nothing moved. But later on, at least it was again revived. So, and that again happened during Gloria's time.
Yeah.
That nothing happened again. Everything was stalled.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So it's kind of a bit of, just in a small measure, redemption that Noy Noy, under his presidency, was when the RH bill became a law, right?
Yes.
And now, thankfully, we're under a pro-RH president, but his human rights, and women's feminist, angle, where he stands on those issues is not really so good. So, but we have something to work with, right? We're moving forward.
True.
So can you share with us, some of the lessons that you've learned throughout the decades? Some things that you wish you'd have been told from the start, because there are a lot of new feminist women's rights and SRHR groups that are just starting out. New advocates. What can you tell them as advice going forward?
Well, actually, to really understand, a woman's situation, the thing is that women have, for a long time, the thinking was that our biology is our destiny. We are the ones bearing children, getting pregnant, delivering children, and so on, and then taking care of the family, and so on. And so it has become like a burden and a responsibility as well. And yet we don't have any, any support and compassion, with all the problems that we bear. So I would really ask everyone to open their eyes, and try to understand women's situation. And if we don't provide women help and support, for what they need, for us to function as equal partners in society, then women will always be put at a disadvantage. So and we should know why is abortion happening. There's so much violence against women. There's so much, loss of control. Actually, women don't have control over their lives. So we would like, women to know more about themselves, gain control, know their rights, and gain control over their bodies. They should be the primary, you might say, source of decision making.
Yeah.
Everybody says what's good for her, but she should know what, she should be able to determine what is good for herself and have that right to reproductive decision making. And so there must be, understanding of the many challenges and the many threats to women's physical and bodily integrity. And violence is one of them, but again, the lack of services and the lack of access to health services, particularly when it comes to pregnancy and unexpected pregnancy. If women had the right to choose and that was fully respected, we would have less, abortion. But there are instances when abortion cannot be avoided, and we must understand when, this should be made available, and be open-minded, and be more compassionate to women's situations.
Just a few of those limited circumstances that you mentioned and asked for at the UN, like when the life and health of the woman is at risk.
Definitely.
Right?
My goodness
when
me.
When the pregnancy, because pregnancy is very dangerous.
Yes.
It's not assured that the woman will survive that. There are maternal deaths because of that risk.
Yes.
And it's at a number of
True.
yeah.
And yet, the practice and the custom would be to, judge more in
Yeah.
favor, of an unborn entity,
Yeah.
that is not a full human being, but a woman who bears, who is pregnant. She's a full individual with rights,
And, yeah.
and these are not equally comparable,
Yeah.
So definitely, when the life of the mother is at risk, I don't think there should be any question
on
about
this,
that.
right?
And then
in instances of rape, for
Exactly.
example, she did not choose to be pregnant in such a way. That's very traumatic. And
exactly. So there's so much violence, and then
As you mentioned,
to
yeah.
say that sexual violence, and then to say that a woman cannot do anything anymore, even if that results in a pregnancy, I think is so cruel.
It
no?
is. It is.
One should do this, with complete reflection. Of course, one cannot just jump into one form of action,
Yeah.
but there should be openness and really reflection on what is good. And I think the woman should also be, her opinion and her judgment and her decision should be respected.
And trusted.
She
yes.
may go ahead with the pregnancy or she may not, but please respect that decision.
Yes.
So that's one. That's another.
And finally,
ground.
fetal impairment, right?
Exactly. Yes.
In certain cases, like the baby will be born only to die a few moments or days, because
Yes.
you already see at an early stage that it's not really a viable pregnancy, and in those situations it would be more traumatic for the woman to go through that experience, and why not give her the more compassionate option?
Yeah, it's really in cases where there is a fetal
Yeah, like as I mentioned, right? Like
yes. Yes, because I know that there can be some debates around, what is fetal impairment, but this should be really openly discussed.
Yeah.
I think that's all we're asking for, that this should be open to public discussions, debate, and then so that we can move forward towards some legislative measure,
Yeah.
that primarily should be supportive of women.
So
in this
I
case.
just noticed now that this has been what you've been fighting for from the beginning, that these discussions happen at a national level and not just left up to the decision of some very, few and powerful people.
Yes, because as it is happening now, I think women are left in their silent agonies, with nobody to talk to, nobody to help. I mean, if neighbors, if families could be understanding and compassionate, or if friends, but the important thing is to talk about it.
Yeah.
Face that problem and
Yes.
not just hide it. And just act as if everything is all right.
Yeah.
And just allow women to die.
Yeah. A lot of people still do not know that up to 600,000, this was the number back in 2013, right? 600,000 abortions happen here in the
Happening.
Philippines.
Yes.
And people think, it doesn't happen because there's such a taboo, there's such a stigma. And groups like Pinsan, which we both are part of,
Yeah.
that's what we do. Can you tell me, has there been progress in the few years that we've started this journey in asking for safe and legal abortion? Like, has there been progress?
Well, I think there has been, because in the beginning, there was a lot of fear and trepidation, reservation about coming out and taking up this issue. But this is something that cannot be stalled forever, and I think some groups have come together precisely to do that, to really bring this out in the open, to face this issue, to discuss more about it. And I think that Pinsan has moved forward a bit. And we're not just doing and talking about it, We are doing serious research, serious planning, and
Legal
consultation
work.
with other people and other groups.
Yeah.
So we're doing this in a in a logical, rational manner, and not just plunging into action without any basis.
Yeah. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Philippine Safe Abortion Advocacy Network podcast. I would like to repeat our invitation to the September 28th Global Day of Action for access to safe and legal abortion. Details of that will be in the description. Thank you so much, Princess, for talking to us. It's been a great journey so far, and I look forward to more years and even decades working on this issue with you.
Thank you.
See you next week.